Everything else is exactly the same. On our knees, tall kneeling, retroversion of pelvis, flat spine, chin tucked in, crown of the head up, eyes looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension, shoulders back, maximum external rotation of the shoulder, elbows extended, and we are going to go into extension of the humerus. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to be your own therapist by demonstrating the top 5 strengthening exercises for medially rotated shoulders. And before I actually get on with the exercises, I first want to explain what exactly medially rotated shoulders are and some problems that can arise if you don't correct this issue. Medially rotated shoulders is when your humerus or your upper arm bone is rotated inward. Ideally, your palms should be facing each other when you are standing in a neutral posture. So if you were to place 2 pencils inside of a closed fist and you put your arms down by your side, ideally those pencils, if they were to extend, they should never meet. The closer they meet, the more medially rotated your shoulders are and the more problems you're going to have. So you would want to address it immediately. Now, in terms of correcting it, some of the things that we could do is do some strengthening exercises for the muscles that are responsible for laterally rotating the shoulders. So bringing the shoulders out and bringing the humerus out and away from your body. And in terms of some things that could happen if you don't correct this, it could lead to shoulder pain, mid-back pain, neck pain. So this is definitely something you would want to address. And if you do have any type of issues in those areas, then these exercises would definitely help. But without further ado, here are the top 5 strengthening exercises for medially rotated shoulders. The first strengthening exercise for medially rotated shoulders is going to be for the posterior deltoid. And for this exercise, I'm going to be showing you 3 different positions that we can do this in. The setup is going to be the exact same for all of them. We're going to be in a tall kneeling position. We're going to be holding a pair of dumbbells. And then for the actual principle of action, we are going to be going into extension of the humerus or the upper arm bone. And then in terms of the actual posterior deltoid, depending on the level of medial rotation or external rotation, that will dictate the fibers that we are going to be emphasizing. I'm going to show you this first variation, and this one right over here is specifically going to be for the medial fibers. If we want to target the medial fibers of the posterior deltoid, what we want to do is go into maximum medial rotation. And then from this position over here, we have retroversion of the pelvis, chin is tucked in, crown of the head is pushing up toward the sky, our eyes are looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension, and then with the shoulders, arms are retracted, and then we are going into extension of the humerus. And this is the strengthening exercise for the posterior deltoid, specifically the medial fibers of the posterior deltoid. Next, if we want to target more the intermediate fibers, what we would do is a neutral position. So our arms are in like we're doing a hammer curl, our palms are facing one another, everything else is exactly the same. Tall kneeling, retroversion of pelvis, flat spine, chin tucked in, crown of the head up, eyes looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension, palms facing each other, shoulders held back, and we are going to go into extension of the humerus. And this is the strengthening exercise for the posterior deltoid, specifically the intermediate fibers of the posterior deltoid. And then lastly, if we want to target more the lateral fibers of the posterior deltoid, we would go into maximum external rotation or lateral rotation. Everything else is exactly the same. On our knees, tall kneeling, retroversion of pelvis, flat spine, chin tucked in, crown of the head up, eyes looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension, shoulders back, maximum external rotation of the shoulder, elbows extended, and we are going to go into extension of the humerus. And this is the strengthening exercise for the posterior deltoid, specifically the lateral fibers of the posterior deltoid. The second strengthening exercise for medially rotated shoulders is going to be for the infraspinatus muscle. And for this one, as with the posterior deltoid, I'm going to be taking you through several variations. But with regard to the different variations, we're going to be in a supine position, a prone position, and we are going to be in a seated position. When we are in a supine position, we are going to be targeting the external range of the motion. And I'm going to just get into position right now. So supine means you are laying down on your back. So I'm going to get onto my back right now. And for this exercise right over here, we want to go anywhere from 80 to 100 degrees. The closer we are to 80 degrees, the more we're going to be targeting the superior fibers of the infraspinatus. The closer we are to 100 degrees, the more we're going to be targeting the inferior fibers of the supraspinatus. And then when our elbow is at 90 degrees, so the humerus, when the humerus is at 90 degrees, then we're going to be targeting more of the middle fibers. But that's the only difference. In terms of the actual external range, all of them are done in the same supine position. So you're going to lay down on your back, you want to take a dumbbell, and then what we're going to do, so right now I have my humerus abducted to 80 degrees, my chin is tucked in, the crown of the head is pushing away, eyes are looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension. And for this exercise right over here, I'm just going to go into external rotation of the humerus. And I want to make sure that my shoulders pin down to the ground. So right now, 80 degrees, targeting the superior fibers. If I want to target more of the middle fibers, I'll bring it up to 90. And then if I want to target more the inferior fibers, then I'm going to bring it up to 100 degrees. And that is the strengthening exercise for the infraspinatus in all fiber directions. Specifically, we are targeting the external range. Next, if we want to target more internal range, then we're going to get into a prone position. For prone position, what we want to do is lie down on our stomach. Everything else is exactly the same. We are going to be going into 80 degrees of abduction for the superior fibers. So right now, my humerus is at 80 degrees. Let me just move back so you guys can actually see it in the camera. My elbow's at 80 degrees. So right now, what I want to do is retroversion of pelvis. My chin is tucked in, crown of the head is pushing away. Eyes are looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension. And for this one, all I want to do is go into external rotation. Then if I want to target the middle fibers, I'm going to bring my humerus to 90 degrees and do the same thing. And lastly, if I want to target the inferior fibers, I'm going to bring it up another 10 degrees to 100 degrees and go into external rotation of the shoulder. For all of these, the chin is tucked in and it's pressing down against the floor. And that is the strengthening exercise for the infraspinatus, specifically in internal range. And then lastly, if we want to do total range, for this one over here, you could be in a seated position and you could be seated on the floor, or you could have something to prop up your elbow. But the main principle of action for this one right over here is you're going to bring your leg out to the side. At 80 degrees, this is where we're targeting the superior fibers. Same thing though, we're just going to go into external rotation. Then, if we want to target the middle fibers, we would go to 90 degrees. So you're going to go up onto your toe at 90 degrees, and then we're going to do the same thing. Chin tucked in, crown of the head up, eyes looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension, retroversion of pelvis. And this is for targeting the middle fibers. And then lastly, if we want to target the inferior fibers, we're going to elevate the humerus a little bit more. So what you can do is place a yoga block or something underneath your elbow. Right now I don't have a yoga block, so I'm just going to place my hand under here. And my arm right now is at about 100 degrees of abduction, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go into external rotation, and this is the strengthening exercise for the infraspinatus. Specifically, we are going in total range. Next, the third strengthening exercise for medially rotated shoulders is going to be for the teres minor. The teres minor, this one right over here, is going to be performed in a supine position, and I'm going to show you two different variations. Both of them are almost identical. There's just a matter of wrist flexion or extension that's going to make a little bit of a difference. But what we want to do for this one is we are abducting our humerus to 140 degrees. And once we abduct our humerus, what we want to do is we're going to lay down on our back and we're going to flex our hips maximally so that our feet are up off the ground. So I'm just going to go ahead, get into the setup position. You're going to lie down on your floor. You're going to flex your hips until your feet leave the ground. Your humerus, you're going to bring it to 140 degrees. You want to keep the chin tucked in, the crown of the head pushing away, eyes looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension. Maintain a flat spine. Try to relax the abdominals. And for this one, we are going to go into external rotation with our humerus abducted to 140 degrees. And in terms of the differences, if we want to target more the superficial fibers, to target the superficial fibers, what we are going to do is bring our forearm into flexion. And then if we want to target more the deep fibers, we're going to bring our wrist into extension. The exercise though isn't the exact same. We're going into external rotation at 140 degrees. The only difference is whether we are flexing the wrist or whether we are extending the wrist. And that is the strengthening exercise for medially rotated shoulders. Specifically, that was the strengthening exercise of the teres minor. Next, the fourth strengthening exercise for medially rotated shoulders is going to be the prone cobra. This exercise, unlike the last three, we're not targeting very specific muscles. This one, it's a little bit more of a global approach. So there's a lot of muscle involved in this exercise. For the prone cobra, what we want to do is, as the name implies, we are in a prone position. So you're lying down on your stomach. And for this one, the main principle of action is we're keeping the chin tucked in, crown of head up, eyes looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension. And then with the arms are down by your side. We are starting out in a medially rotated position with our scapula protracted. And then we are going to retract the scapula, we are going to extend the shoulders, and we are going to laterally rotate the shoulders by pointing our thumbs toward the ceiling. So right now, I'm going to go ahead, lie down on the floor and show you guys the exercise. So we're going to go into trunk extension, go into extension of the humerus, lateral rotation of the humerus, and squeeze those shoulder blades together, and then come back down to the ground. And this is the fourth strengthening exercise for medially rotated shoulders. This is the prone cobra. The fifth and final strengthening exercise for medially rotated shoulders is going to be the low pulley external rotation. And for this exercise, all we need is a pulley system. And in terms of the setup position, we want to set the pulley at a low position so that the line of pull is in line with our lower arm. For this one right over here, there's going to be 3 different variations I'm going to be showing you. The first is the hand over the opposite hip. So what we want to do for this one, the elbow is going to be tucked in by our side, and the hand is going to be over the opposite hip that we are working. So right now, I am working on my right shoulder, so my right hand is over my left hip. And for this one, what we want to do is we're going to exhale as we push out for 2 seconds, and then we are going to inhale as we bring our arm back for the count of 4 seconds. And the entire time, we want to pin that elbow to our side. We don't want to let it leave. And this is the low pulley external rotation, hand over opposite hip. Once this becomes a little bit easy, what we can do to progress it is bring the arm into abduction a little bit. In terms of the amount of abduction, we want to have the hand over the umbilicus, so the belly button. So what I'm going to do is abduct my arm until my hand is over the umbilicus, and same thing. We're going to press out for 2 seconds, go into external rotation, and then come back for a count of 4 seconds. And this is the low pulley external rotation, hand over umbilicus. And then lastly, if we want to make it even more difficult, what we can do is go into a little bit more abduction with the humerus so that our hand is over the same side hip. So right now, I'm going to go into abduction right there. My hand is over the same side hip. Same thing. I'm going to go into external rotation for a count of 2, and then I'm going to go back for a count of 4 seconds. And this right over here is the low pulley external rotation, hand over the same side hip. In terms of the sets and repetitions, this one is not going to be like the other bodyweight exercises or the other rotator cuff muscles that we were working on. Instead of doing 3 sets of 50, this we want to do 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions. And in terms of the tempo, it's going to be the exact same for all of the different variations. So go ahead, give that exercise a try. And again, we want to do 10 to 12 repetitions for 3 sets, and we're going to rest 60 seconds in between each set. And there you have it. Those were the top 5 strengthening exercises for medially rotated shoulders. If you have medially rotated shoulders, or if you have any type of neck pain, shoulder pain, or mid-back pain, go ahead, give those exercises a try. And in terms of the sets and repetitions, what you want to do is 3 sets of 50 repetitions for each of the exercises. That's 5-0, not 1-5. The reason being, we're trying to elicit a postural change. Whenever we're trying to elicit a postural change, we want to accumulate enough time under tension. And if we do the typical 8 to 12 bodybuilding repetition rep range, we're not going to be able to accumulate that time under tension. So 3 sets of 50 repetitions for each exercise. Give it a try, and then write your comments down in the comment section. Have you tried them? Did they work? And then this Saturday, coming up at 10 a.m., I'm going to be uploading the top 5 myofascial stretching exercises for medially rotated shoulders. Those are going to be a terrific complement to the exercises that we just did today. So be on the lookout for that. And that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to keep making these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.